Now we're going to move on to our colleague Roman Chojnacki, who is going to do a presentation on when is it time to contact our law firm for some help.
So generally, there's three reasons that clients should contact us. Changes in your situation, changes in the law, and changes in the way we plan. And I'm going to go through each of these three reasons for you. Next slide. So changes in your situation, it's real important that you tell us about these, because unless we read about it in the paper, we're not going to know that some of these things have happened. So the main changes in your situation that we want to focus on are health status. It could be your health status or a family member. Maybe someone you named as a successor trustee would no longer be able to serve in that capacity. If you move to a different state or you're planning to move, that would be another reason. Retirement. At retirement, many times you realign your assets, and that realignment may impact the funding of your trust and the naming of beneficiaries. So we would like to be consulted then. Marriages and divorces, we have a very, very good record of our clients not getting divorced, but this could impact your children and grandchildren beneficiaries that maybe you want to let us know this has occurred. Sometimes we change names and plans, but legally that's not necessary. Births and deaths. Deaths is one occurrence that surprises us a few times a year, where we will have done planning for a husband and wife in a joint trust, and then we'll get a call from a child saying that both parents have passed away. We can normally take care of that situation without too much difficulty, but it's important for us to know if you have a joint trust, even if there's not a lot of work that needs to be done when the first spouse dies, that we really should be consulted when that happens. Occasionally, we need to be contacted because someone has fallen in disfavor with you, and the plan needs to be adjusted for that reason. And on the happier side, maybe an estrangement has been repaired, and now someone that may have been left out of a plan may now be included again in the future. If you receive a large inheritance or win the lottery, then we may have to do some tax planning that you previously didn't need. For everyone, we like to see you 2 to 5 years. And usually as you get older and past retirement, the time is usually sooner rather than later. Families that are still younger can usually wait a little longer for a review unless one of those changes in situations that I've talked about occurred. But as you get older, it makes more sense to get in contact with us on a more frequent basis. And then finally, when children grow up or grandchildren grow up, it can be helpful to review your plan, because when you initially did your plan, your children may have been too young to serve as a trustee or to serve as a healthcare agent. But as they get older, now they can serve in those roles. So maybe they're going to replace a sibling or even a parent. Next slide. So changes in the law. We heard about tax law changes and how we can help you to decipher the impact of those changes upon your plan. Asset protection is a way that we can make sure that your hard-earned estate, when it's received by a beneficiary, can be protected. There have been changes in asset protection that I'm going to talk a little bit about next, how they impact the way we do planning. Medicaid planning, we want to make sure that the documents you have in place allow Stacy and Mark, if we have to do Medicaid planning, to have all the tools they need in your existing plan to go on and do advanced planning, or if we have to do some type of crisis planning, we have the tools to do that. And then also digital property is a good example of something that when I started doing estate planning over 20 years ago, we didn't have to address that in the plans, but now it's something that Wisconsin law specifically has addressed in statutes, and we want to make sure that we include any provisions that impact digital property in your planning. Next slide. So the way that we plan sometimes changes. We get smarter, the law changes, and we need to adapt to that. We get feedback from our clients that they may have had issues with the way a document was drafted, so we may rethink the way we do that. One example again is digital assets. We add language about that now. Another change in the way we plan involves strategies for beneficiary controlled trusts. And those are the trusts where you allow the beneficiary to be their own trustee. Prior to 2015, we used to need to team a beneficiary with another co-trustee in order to have the best asset protection. Now for your beneficiaries, at least living in Wisconsin, that's no longer necessary. So we can modify plans to allow beneficiaries to be their own sole trustee without having to team them up. The next bullet point talks about the broader use of disclaimer trusts for married clients. Mark talked about how a trust protector can step in and save some of the administrative costs after the first death, but it's much better if you can come in, meet with us, and be consulted on the way you would want your plan to work. The reason we can save administrative costs at the first death is we don't have to do as extensive tax planning. As Amanda discussed, the estate tax credit is extremely high, so very few clients now need to use a family trust in order to do tax planning. That may change if the exemption is reduced, but for now, we're able to use a disclaimer trust, which means that on the first death, the surviving spouse can pretty much carry on business as usual without very many administrative costs. And then finally, we can get a step up in basis, which is a capital gain planning strategy, by adding a provision to a family trust if that is something that is still a good planning strategy for you. I did mention there that we are seldom using family trusts now, but in the case that we were to use them, we want to make sure that your children or you would get a step up in basis and avoid unnecessary capital gains. We can also apply that to trust shares if your children have their shares in trust and then they pass away. We can try to maintain a step up in basis for them. Next slide. So the way to initiate a review is to give us a phone call. You can send an email. We do want to hear from you. And if you do contact us and don't hear from us, please get back in touch with us, because sometimes it doesn't happen too often, but if we have a message that we don't get back to in time, we want you to remind us, because we definitely want to be in touch with you and answer the questions you may have. Next slide. So the type of review you could have, it could be simple as a phone call. As Mark said, we are still using COVID-related procedures for meetings. So you may feel more comfortable with a video conference. And then also we can have in-person meetings at one of our 3 locations, or if medically necessary, we can come out and visit you. The best thing that you should keep in mind is it does not cost anything for you to have a review. The purpose of the review is to catch up with you, talk over how well your existing plan would work due to the change in circumstances. And if no changes are necessary, then there's no charge for the review. If we do need if we do recommend changes, then our policy is, again, we try to work from a fixed fee basis. We would tell you exactly how much the cost of the work would be, and then you can decide whether or not you want to make those changes. Next slide. So there we go, Mark. You can take it from here and wrap up the program. Thank you for attending.